To be or not to be. What's up, guys? So Rivera. This video is going to go in depth on things that stood out to me while reading Shakespeare in the Bush. So, in this assignment for school, as we go over the culture and perception of how our worldview shapes our understanding, given the option, I actually was looking into the story on Richard Borshay Lee. However, the article was unavailable when I tried looking it up. So ended up stumbling upon Shakespeare in the Bush by Laura Bohannon. And here's a couple key things that just stuck out to me. So first off, Hamlet by Shakespeare, definitely a well-known story, one of Shakespeare's tragedies or comedies. I mean, it goes back and forth over the years. I mean, for myself, it actually was quite a while since I read Hamlet. It was back in high school when I first read it, and I had to read it again just to get a better understanding of it and get some key takeaways. So, first off, the summary of this by Laura Bohannon, Shakespeare's in the Bush. Both, there's a lot of key takeaways. Obviously, when we're looking at how worldview shapes our understanding, what goes into that? What are some key takeaways? So this can be a profound example of really exploring cultures and how it shapes our viewpoints through experiences, through really our lenses and lenses of others. So first off, as Laura is like an anthropologist, she's going over. She goes to West Africa and she's with the people of Tiv. And the Tiv people, Tiv or the Tiv, I hope I'm not mispronouncing that right. Obviously, they have a different background and different viewpoint on things. So, Bohannon, an American anthropologist, her main goal is to set out and prove that Hamlet is a universally known story and how that story can kind of melt into any culture and have similar takeaways in about any culture itself. So while she lives with the people of Tiv in West Africa, she decides to tell them the plot of Hamlet. So expecting that the themes of betrayal, revenge, and fate would be clear to everybody. However, this was actually, as I peeled back the onion in this article, it definitely didn't go the way how I expected, and I found unique and interesting, and I have my own thoughts I'm going to share momentarily. However, what follows is really the cultural relativity here, because a lot of ideas that people interpret in events through like their lens and their norms and beliefs is really the case here in this story. So as far as some key things that just stood out to me in this is based off when Laura Bohannon is telling the story, she's kind of interrupted a few times by the people of Tiv. And I mean, one example is like when Bohannon describes the ghost of Hamlet's father, the Tiv elders, so the respected, well, the elders, they've gone through experience, they know, they insisted it must be an omen or a witch because of their belief system. So constantly throughout the story, they're linking their beliefs into and plugging and playing on what goes on in in Hamlet. So realistically, they're trying to put their own point of view, their own perspective, and tying it into this maybe universally known story. So based off my understanding of this, they do this in a way how they can understand, how they can relate to it, right? I feel like myself, I've probably done that just so I can have a better understanding and really drive home the message that is taken away here. So, that's the initial thought, but they use because of their belief system. Ghosts don't exist, so they're using their own methods, their way of thinking. So they think that Hamlet's uncle did nothing wrong, as far as because their beliefs and their society. It's not really nothing wrong with it. So, sensitive culture, it's expected that a brother should marry a deceased brother's wife to take care of her. That actually made it seem normal for them in a way. And as far as, when you look at that universally, we could probably say that it's a little bit odd, right? Not your norm, not your average person, right? But as far as in this story, it really makes you think of, hey, what is average, right? So it could be a takeaway. Now, even Hamlet's madness explained like the local ideas and spiritual possession or witchcraft. This really made it, they tied in their cultures. I mean, they constantly interrupted Bohannon a few times to kind of, share their perspective and kind of share their knowledge, right? So with their knowledge, you know, they were, because they're elders, they believe, they're respected. So in a way, it seemed like when Bohannon was trying to go over there and tell a story and maybe link different backgrounds and cultures together, the T was essentially putting themselves in their own shoes, at least from my understanding. Um, this is at least revisited a few times, and really the big takeaway is, although we think Hamlet is, a universally known story, maybe it's not. Now, as far as maybe when you deep dive into it, the specifics, maybe not. However, there is a universal aspect here that I really enjoyed, and I think a big takeaway is the power of storytelling. The power of storytelling is so important here because it still binded people. The people of Teve gave Bohannon an opportunity to share. And opportunities like that really show where we can build. And that alone was the powerful message that I got here. So with the power of storytelling, I mean, even though the dynamics were different, their beliefs were different, what is universal in this story is we all like to tell stories, right? We all believe there's a message. And, if you take that at face value, that can be a universal aspect of things. So that was really a big takeaway that I saw there. Just going through my notes here. The elders interpret questions, reinterpret as the story unfolds, and really, I mean, they try to see their story in their light, right, in their viewpoint. And I mean, when you look at that, I mean, I think that's a universally natural aspect that we try to put ourselves in, through our experiences, through our lenses of life. We try to view, a mutual understanding here. So as far as the universal message here might have been, maybe not what Bohannon was exactly expecting. There's a lot of things that were still, vital takeaways here. So, as far as the Western idea or, the version of the story, the interaction that, Bohannon eventually learns that stories are living things. And I think that's really the universal message and the big takeaway here. Um, Everyone has a story. And because everybody has a story, we're here to listen. And we're shaped by listeners, by the values, by experiences, and really our worldviews. So all that varies, but the common trait here is we all have a story. And because of all having that story, it's truly empowering. So that was a lot of big takeaways. I think, is this normal? I mean, as far as the normal aspect of things, what is normal, right? My normal is maybe different than your normal. And that is where we maybe need to develop the mutual understanding. Um, our cultures, our beliefs, and especially here at GCU, you know, we maybe have the same common ground, but others in different cultures, different religions, potentially won't, right? So in this case, linking this to like my own tradition, my own tradition, um, I was trying to learn and really find the big takeaways here. And I could relate to a lot of things as far as with face value, because though I may not exactly agree with the specifics of what's going on, I can definitely agree with the power of storytelling. And through our experiences and through our lenses, you know, we're able to learn and grow from that. So as far as like impacts and takeaways, with Shakespeare in the Bush, cultural interpretation can vary. And because it varies, that's what making a global citizen is valuable. When you have the ability to go ahead and understand different cultures and take it at what it is, it's valuable, it's growth. Now, obviously, there's going to be things that not everyone agrees on, but finding the common ground. So, understanding culture requires listening without assuming shared meanings. So, I think this is a great example. If you ever seen the meme of like, one viewpoint they're looking at a 6, and then the other person is looking the opposing view, and it's a 9. So, just because where they're angled at, they're two different things, but it's essentially the same thing that they're looking at. So because of that, I mean, I think everything has a meaning to it. We should also work to that common ground. So communication across cultures always evolve. Transitions, words, symbols, worldviews. What seemed obvious to one person may be puzzling to another, or maybe doesn't make sense, can be nonsensical to another. So I think it's important to have patience and develop understanding, and really love thy neighbor. As far as that method here is, doing your best to love one another and show love, empathy, passion, and we build on that. We build and create things off of those. So there's a lot of value that I learned through this. I hope you enjoyed watching this and got enough information here. So thank you so much for your time. You have a great rest of your day. You take care.